Welcome back in here at 6:44 in the morning, and it is round two for the two candidates vying for the open seat in the race for governor. They met again on the debate stage last night.
You saw the first debate right here on King 5. Republican Dave Reichert and Democrat Bob Ferguson participated in a second debate last night in Spokane in front of a live audience. It was hosted by the Association of Washington Business and Greater Spokane Incorporated. We heard from the candidates in the last half hour about one of the top issues in our state, public safety. The candidates also laid out their plan to address the rising cost of living.
As Attorney General, we've taken on entities that are engaging in price fixing. We returned recently more than $40 million to Washingtonians because tuna companies and chicken companies engaged in price fixing. I recovered those dollars, and what do we do with it? Send it right back to the pocketbooks of Washingtonians all across our state.
It boils down to taxes. You know, what we're doing right now on this gas tax is it is a burden on each and every one of us living in Washington state. We need to pause that gas tax.
Austin Jenkins was with Pluribus News and is the longtime host of Inside Olympia. He was one of the panelists at last night's debate and joins us now live this morning. So Austin, both candidates definitely seemed more comfortable in this debate than they did in the first. Is there a particular issue that stood out to you last night?
Yeah, I agree that they did seem more comfortable. They had their supporters in the audience. It was pretty raucous, actually. A lot of applause and a lot of sort of audience participation. And I think that, you know, as we saw in the first debate, certainly what's going on here as we head towards election day is these two candidates are trying to distinguish themselves. And, you know, it's interesting because this is the first open governor's race in 12 years. But in many ways, what you see going on here is Dave Reichert trying to treat Ferguson as an incumbent. He's the three-term attorney general, not a three-term governor, but definitely trying to make the case that he's the newcomer on the stage, Reichert that is, and he's the change agent. And at the same time, you've got Ferguson really talking about his record as attorney general and why that prepares him for governor, but also trying to make the case that he'll be a change agent, acknowledging that the state is facing some pretty tough issues.
Yeah, Austin, public safety has been a really interesting topic between these two men. One a sheriff, the other is an attorney, so they kind of come at law enforcement and criminal backgrounds in different ways. How are they standing out on this issue right now? Who do you think is sort of taking the lead in that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and they do come at this from sort of different perspectives, but you know, oftentimes we talk about the attorney general as the state's top cop, and certainly Reichert was the King County sheriff. And public safety is top of mind for voters. And so once again, you've got a situation where Ferguson is trying to establish his credibility in the law enforcement community. He often points to the fact that county prosecutors will turn to his office to prosecute high-level cases when they need extra help. He's making the case that if he's elected governor, he will work to get more cops on the street. What Reichert is saying is, look, Democrats have had a chance. They've been in control. They've been in office. It's time for a change. It's time for somebody, essentially a new sheriff, to come into town and to take a different approach. And one line that stuck out to me that's a little bit, it was a housing question, and it was actually around the rent cap. We asked about a potential rent cap. Reichert specifically said the state needs to get tough on squatters, people who are taking over abandoned houses, and go after them. So at every opportunity, he was returning back to that public safety message.
And Austin, you asked the candidates about their plans to address climate change. You asked about reducing the state's carbon emissions. There was an exchange about that. What did you think about how they answered that?
I thought it was interesting. Reichert said that he agrees the state ought to move away from fossil fuel dependency. That's stuck in my ear when he said that. He also said he didn't think that there should be essentially artificial timelines for doing so. He was criticizing Democrats who set very specific timelines for phasing out, for instance, new gas-powered cars or moving to clean electricity. What Ferguson's response is that he, in essence, supports the existing climate policies and was saying to the audience, you can't trust Dave Reichert on this. He'll say one thing in front of a debate audience and another thing to his supporters, and essentially trying to suggest that he's a climate denier. So there was some fireworks there. Yeah. But again, interesting to hear both candidates sort of, at least in that environment, talking about a move away fossil fuel dependency for the long term.
Yeah, big issue with Inslee again pushing for his carbon tax initiative as well. 6:49 in the morning, and we are appreciative of Austin Jenkins. Thanks for being with us this morning. King 5, by the way, along with the Seattle Times, hosted the governor's debate last week. If you want to hear more from the candidates on the big issues facing Washington State, you can watch that debate in full as well up on king5.com.